I feel as though this essay's been a long time coming for me. I've been a Magic the Gathering player for 13 years, which, while not a huge span of time when compared to the game total history, is not an insubstantial number either. I wasn't deeply ingrained in the community for all that time, but suffice it to say that I've been a part of the community for at least 10 years, watching games, attending F&Ms, and playing at home with friends. Hell, I've probably attended a double-digit number of Grand Prix slash Magicon slash whatever other name they've given this thing now. Magic has shaped my life fundamentally, and some of my favorite memories are about this game. However, in the last couple years, I have felt some of that magic leave this game for me. The level of enthusiasm I have for the game does not hit the same highs it once did, or even really come close in doing so. I feel myself bored by set releases and product and formats as a whole. I still play Magic, don't get me wrong, but a lot of the time I feel like I'm going through the motions. Now, this video is not some why I'm quitting Magic hit piece. I'm not quitting Magic, nor do I have any intentions of quitting Magic anytime soon. I don't want to abandon this game that I care so deeply about, that I have put so much time into. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't worried that the only reason I stick around is because I have sunk too much time, too much money into this game. I worry that walking away might mean defeat. I worry that maybe I'm not sticking with this game because I love it, but because I'm scared to leave it. So I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to talk about my growing apathy towards my favorite game ever, and why I feel the way I do. I know that many people have made discussions about the things that are killing Magic, and I want to be clear. I don't think anything is inherently killing the game. I don't want people to construe what I'm doing here as hating on Magic. That's never been my intention. I don't hate this game, and I don't encourage others to do so. The point of this video is to be an analysis of my own disillusionment and why I think others might feel the same. So let's talk about it, because boy howdy, do I have some thoughts. I think we're probably best off addressing the elephant in the room. The biggest argument players have about the state of the game in the current year centers around Universes Beyond. For over 3 years now, Magic has been selling product that licenses characters from other IPs, and in the time since, it has become more and more prevalent. Now, I just want to get this part out of the way. I do not like Universes Beyond as a product. I do not like the inclusion of IPs other than Magic in Magic. I did not like it when Ikoria had Godzilla variants of existing cards. I did not like it when they printed the Walking Dead Secret Lair, and I do not like that these sets are now included in Standard. However, that is not the only focus of this discussion. Not explicitly, at least. I recognize that my disdain for Universes Beyond is a problem that falls squarely with me. It's not even that I don't like the IPs they've chosen to include in this ever-expanding series of collaborations. I mean, at least not categorically. I have a Lord of the Rings themed wallet. I went to New Zealand as my high school senior trip to go visit Hobbiton. There are some of these products that I enjoy independently of Magic. Of course, the problem there is that I enjoy them independently of Magic, not in conjunction with it. I don't think I can give a concrete and clear reason for my disdain, but at its core boils down to just my general lack of interest in crossovers as a whole, not just within Magic. I tend to get drawn into a world or game or what have you because the characters in the world building are interesting, and I find the suspension of disbelief I have to engage with crossover products like this just make me look at it and go, that's not the thing. Now, once again, I recognize that this is a me problem, and the response to people like me has been, if you don't like it, then don't engage with it. And I agree. I did not care for Universes Beyond, so I did not engage with it. The problem has become that holding this mentality has become increasingly hard to do. If you're a typical 60-card constructed player, this has become essentially impossible. You will have to put some number of these cards into your deck, and you have to pay for them. And in doing so, I have indirectly supported a product that I do not care for. Now, it's not like I'm being forced to buy sealed product for a set I don't like, and that's true. The problem for me is that even putting that aside, it's still hard to avoid engaging with it anymore. The release timeline for 2026 features 4 Universes Beyond sets. Over half of their flagship lineup consists of Universes Beyond sets for this year. Last year was almost identical as well. 2025 featured a 50-50 split between in-universes sets and crossovers. Hey, if you take away everything I know I won't care about, this almost looks like a classic set release schedule. With the limited number of universes within sets, I feel as though I'm being pressured to engage with them, even if they aren't sets I would normally care too much about, purely because I want to represent that I am interested in universes within more than universes beyond. Take, for instance, the upcoming Secrets of Strixhaven set. I wasn't the biggest fan of Strixhaven. I thought the set was kinda boring, but I did like how they tried to shift the identity of some of the two-color pairings. I thought it was a neat experiment that came in a shell I wasn't much interested in. With the limited quantity of the sets in the release schedule, I feel as though I have to enjoy these sets, because if I don't, well, there goes one of the 3 universes within sets for the year. Over the past 3 years, as of the time of writing, there have been exactly 1 set that I have been excited for, genuinely, that I actively bought sealed product of during pre-release and actively wanted to collect the cards from, and that was Lorwyn Eclipsed. It's already hard enough to keep up with the absolute deluge of product. From secret layers to new sets to commander decks, it's overwhelming. But watching as these sets get announced, and it's stuff that I'm either totally opposed to or largely indifferent to, it becomes numbing. I watch as the release announcements wash over me, performatively engaging with the spoilers just so I know what one single card from Spider-Man I actually want to buy is. And spoiler alert, it's the most expensive card in the set. I don't want to feel apathetic about every set release. I want to feel excited about some of them. It didn't used to matter if I wasn't interested in some of the universes within sets because I didn't like the theming, because there were a lot of them to choose from. It didn't matter if I wasn't interested in the Dragon set because there'd be something like Theros, a setting that I love, or Zendikar, another popular plane, or Conspiracy. God, remember Conspiracy? That's a really cool thing we'll probably never see again. Tarkir Dragonstorm is a good set, and I don't want people to think that I think it's a bad set, but it certainly didn't capture my interest in the ways that I wish it had. I want to go back to 2024 and talk about a couple of the sets released this year. I intend on keeping this brief, as Tolarian Community College has already said most of what I wanted to cover here, but the fact that 2024 was dominated by this hat set, as he puts it, style of design did not help my interest in the game for that year. Magic, but their X, was something that wore thin on me almost immediately, and tended to rely on gimmicks that I felt did not fit within the context of the world. I love Ravnica. A planar-wide city is such a fascinating design concept to me, and the architecture of the setting is beautiful. It's no wonder that this has been one of Magic's most popular settings. But why did Murders of Karlov Manor need to take place here? The entire year was full of in-universe sets that felt particularly underwhelming, each one focusing on some kind of gimmick, which can be fine in isolation, but when every set looks like this, it can become kind of grating by the 3rd iteration. And even that is based on the assumption that you like the gimmicks that each of these sets was based on, which I'm sure you'll be shocked to learn, I did not. Cowboys was fine enough, if underwhelming to me, but I really did not care for the 80s B-movie theming of Duskmourn, which kind of sucked because the actual setting seemed interesting to me. The idea of a plane consisting of one massive building is a neat idea. It works well with the horror aesthetic, with few wide-open areas or lines of sight making it easy for horrors to lurk in the shadows. The whole thing can feel very claustrophobic. However, I feel some level of disconnect in seeing a modern cheerleader on a Magic card, or how the showcase frame for the set was a television. I think this disconnect stems from the same place that my aversion to Universes Beyond sets comes from. The fact that much of the draw I had for the game, and the reason it appealed to me, were interesting fantasy settings. Let's shift gears and talk about Secret Layers. Secret Lair started in 2019 as a way to print specialized versions of cards and sell them straight to consumers. The nature of Secret Layers meant that they didn't have to follow any kind of set motif or theming outside of whatever was opposed onto them, which tended to make for more interesting and unique card designs that break the traditional standards of card structure. Now, on the surface, I don't have an issue with this. It's a way to sell interesting and unique card designs that you would otherwise have no space for, even with the advent of things like special guest series cards. This outlet also has allowed them to collaborate with outside artists, such as their drop with Mischief. Even if I don't enjoy the aesthetics of each Secret Lair, I understand the merit of the product, and in spite of how it may seem, I do recognize that not every product can be for me. My issue with Secret Layers are more structural than anything. Let's start with the model itself. Almost every Secret Lair is a 5-card bundle. Sometimes they're 4, sometimes they're 6, but this is typically the standard. My issue with this is the seemingly arbitrary number of cards included, and how it rarely ever produces a Secret Lair drop that proves to be a substantial deal. There's something about purchasing 5 cards at an approximate $40 price point that just rubs me the wrong way, especially when the value of these cards on the secondary market tends to be functionally identical to the price point set by Wizards. One of the things I had expected secret layers to be able to do was push impactful reprints that might otherwise be difficult to put into a set. In practice, this rarely ever happens. Looking through the list of cards available in a standard secret layer, Mox Opal was really the only instance of this happening that I could find. And even that was in a secret layer drop that was at a much higher price point than the typical $30 to $40 range these products sit at. And even if they did print these kinds of chase reprints frequently, they'd be brushing up against another issue of their own making, and that's supply. On January 2nd, 2024, Wizards of the Coast announced that they were no longer operating secret layers on a print-to-demand system, which had hitherto been the standard for the product. They would try and estimate the amount of product they believed they would sell, and if orders exceeded that estimate, then they would print more. This proved to be too logistically challenging, so instead secret layers would now operate on a limited run system. The amount of product they printed was all they had, and once it was gone, anyone who had failed to purchase any would now be forced to buy it on the secondary market. This means that secret layers now frequently run out incredibly quickly, forcing individuals to wait in line on the website as soon as the drop goes live, attempting to slog their way through the queue in the hopes that whatever layer they were looking to purchase is still available by the time they make it to the purchase window. I disagree with this model because of the incentive structure it generates. The system encourages people to buy product without the intention of playing with it, simply to sell it to those who were not able to get the product during its window of availability because of a lack of supply. Scalping is already an inherent part of most collectible hobbies, but a system like this almost seems to actively reward it by very publicly displaying the limited nature and first-come first-served basis of secret layers. And this isn't even discussing the specific isolated fiascos like the relatively recent Prince Charming secret layer, with multiple different price points that offered absolutely no difference aside from how much money you ended up giving Wizards, further complicating the issue of speed and scalping by giving those who got in early a higher rate of return. This kind of leads us into the technical issues that can manifest during secret layer drops, as the website can often be put under immense stress, particularly if a secret layer drop is in high demand. Wait times can be long to even get in, and once you do, you're still not immune to technical problems. You can get a place in line only to then lose it for seemingly no reason. Secret layers that are marked as unavailable can actually still be available to purchase, and subsequently, the inverse is also true. Secret layers that you have put in your cart can, in fact, be unavailable and go missing from your cart before checkout. Still more, we have yet to talk about the elephant in the room when it comes to secret layers, and that is mechanically unique ones. Starting with the Walking Dead secret layer, the cards within them could now be completely new cards, only available for purchase through WotC's own website, at whatever price point they ended up setting for the product. Keep in mind that the number of cards you received in one of these still averaged around 5, and the price point still sat at $40. This caused another issue with supply, above the issues that secret layers already faced, because now they included cards you couldn't get anywhere else. You can't pull a Rick Steadfast Leader out of a $5 booster pack. He was only available through the purchase of a $50 secret layer. Now, WotC did also announce that they intended to release in-universes versions of these cards within booster packs, but here again we run into another issue I take with this system. The timeline for implementing this plan was placed squarely into the nebulous future, with no set date for when they would manage to implement this policy, and, in practice, the amount of time it takes to get these cards in any substantial quantity is best measured in years. The Walking Dead secret layer wasn't implemented into boosters until Wilds of Eldraine in 2023, over 3.5 years after the release of the Walking Dead secret layer, and even this is the subject of a minor controversy. While this was the first mechanically unique secret layer, it was not the first one to make it into actual Magic boosters. This already means that the nebulous timeline of the future does not operate on a first-come, first-served system, but rather whichever ones they ended up releasing first. The second issue is that the ratio at which you received one of these universes within cards has been adjusted since they were first implemented. Magic used to have a separate slot in packs for the list, which was just a system through which you could get old random cards from throughout Magic's history. With the introduction of universes within cards, sometimes this list card would be replaced by one of these mechanically unique secret layer cards, reskinned to fit within the Magic IP. The initial run of these cards, released in Streets of New Capenna, had a hit rate of about 50%. This meant that for every list card you received in a pack, which itself was about 25% of the time that card would instead be a Universes Within card. This ratio was later adjusted to 16% of list cards and then again down to 5. This dramatically hampers the availability of these cards, as it basically means that 1% of the time you will receive one of these mechanically unique secret layer cards, which, again, the only other way to obtain them was to pay Wizards of the Coast $50 to receive the cards in the mail. While the latter method is still technically cheaper than buying them all outright, this is not inherently a good thing, as it means that supply did not adequately meet the issue of demand, as the price of these cards moved little, if at all. In fact, the Universes Within version of Rick, Greymon Davis, and Stalwart is more expensive than his secret layer counterpart. Now, this price issue likely doesn't speak to just supply and demand, but also the desire to instead use the Universes Within version, as well as the perpetual issue of poor foiling practices, as all in-universes versions of these cards are not available in foil. But I think it's still undeniable that the supply was simply not high enough to move the needle in most instances. Couple that with the fact that since the release of the Walking Dead cards in 2023, only one other drop of Universes Within cards has been released, allowing players to get new versions of the D&D movie secret layer cards, and that there are still a double-digit number of cards that have yet to make their way into products. This issue is compounded by the fact that a massive super drop with Sony featuring a number of their IPs has dramatically increased the number of mechanically unique secret layer cards that have no other method of acquisition. My last complaint about secret layers is more rooted in a specific variant of them. A fair number of secret layers are special variants of lands. This is pretty neat on the surface, and exactly the kind of thing that I think secret layers should be used for. Special variants of basic lands is something that appeals to me, and I often go out of my way to purchase specialty basics for the decks that I use. The problem stems from the way that these secret layers are structured. Many of them feature one basic of each type, and only one of each. Now, there's nothing wrong with getting a variety, in theory. With basic lands, however, it becomes something of a problem. One of each basic land is not enough to construct any deck, really, unless you're playing a 5-color deck with tons of non-basics in it. This means that in order to have enough lands to play in a deck, one of two things needs to happen. You either need to buy an obscene amount of secret layers in order to have enough lands to build a functional deck with all matching lands, or you're forced to purchase the lands off the secondary market, usually at a fairly high price. Though this method is still cheaper than buying 10 secret layers, I suppose. It almost makes these land-based secret layers feel pointless, as one of each land is little more than enough to show off the theme, something better relegated to a binder for showcasing as opposed to actually playing them. This runs counter to the reasons that I like including specialty lands in my decks, why I even bother to seek them out. I want to look at the pretty cardboard I put in my deck, and this model of secret layer does not really facilitate that, and especially not at the price point they offer it at.
Magic's biggest format at present is Commander. I don't think I need to explain to most people what the Commander format entails. It's a fun format that promotes interesting and diverse deck building. I love sitting down across from 3 other people and seeing what interesting decks and ideas they've come up with. I even play a lot of CEDH in my spare time.
In the 13 years that I've been playing Magic, however, I've witnessed a shift. I've watched as every other format that previously saw paper play has largely disappeared at the expense of Commander and the all-encompassing shift towards casual gameplay. I appreciate the success of Commander. I love that a fan format has such a long arm. I like that I can sit down at almost any LGS and get a game of Commander in. It's impressive for a, formerly, unofficial format to have that kind of ubiquity. Unfortunately, this popularity has come at the expense of all other formats. I remember when LGSs used to play a wide range of formats, from standard to modern to draft, and even sometimes other fan formats like Oathbreaker. Remember Oathbreaker? This simply hasn't been my experience in the last 3 or so years. Most LGSs deal predominantly in Commander, if exclusively in it, and any other format is largely dependent on the surrounding community at any store. One LGS might play Modern, but I can't bring a Modern deck anywhere and expect to sit down with other people. Now, this isn't entirely WotC's fault, but they are partially responsible. Commander has been the workhorse of moving product for years now, to the point where sets heavily revolve around the inclusion of legendary creatures. There has been a clear distinction in the amount of legendary creatures before and after the rise of Commander.
It's also visible in products, as every set now includes 1 or 2 Commander decks as a companion to the set's release. I have no issue with them releasing Commander decks for sets, but I do have an issue with them only releasing Commander decks for sets.
These kinds of products are typically a new player's introduction to the game, as deck building is daunting for a new player, and a lack of understanding of card quality typically leads to an underwhelming experience. I know that my first ever Magic product was the starter deck that featured Polis Crusher as the bombshell rare. Given that the only real gateway decks now come in the form of Commander precons, it also means that almost all new players are immediately funneled into Commander, especially if you're playing exclusively in paper. Playing digitally through Magic Arena at least offers Standard as an alternative experience. I don't know the exact number or even an estimate of new players who get into the game through Magic Arena, but I can't help feeling like diversifying the new player experience in paper would likely lead to a more diverse array of popular formats. I don't know that it would dethrone Commander, but maybe I would feel justified in building a modern or, God forbid, a pioneer deck. But at present, I just do not feel I would get the kind of use out of it compared to the price tag. Commander's a fun format, but sometimes I grow tired of the discussion that it requires. Casual Commander requires it because the format is inherently unbalanced. It's necessary to make sure everyone has fun. CEDH doesn't require discussion the same way, but instead uses discussion as a weapon against the other players. The new strategy has been to collude with one another in order to deal with problematic threats to most effectively optimize your limited resources in a game where you are actively competing against 3 other players for the win. Bluffing anything is a strategy that has taken a back seat to this heavily political game plan. You can still choose to play like this, keeping your cards secret and refusing to negotiate with the other players, but you will likely be doing so alone. Much of this discussion is not present in 1v1 formats, because there's no one to collude with, because it will never be in the interest of the other player to accept the terms of the deal, as the end goal is always in your defeat. It becomes more of a mind game in that regard, which was some of my favorite gameplay of 60-card constructed formats. In isolation, I don't think any one of these events would elicit a response from me. I don't care all that much about secret layers because I choose not to engage with them. My dissatisfaction with the game has been a death by 1,000 cuts situation. It's the compounding of these issues that rubs me the wrong way, and has caused me to seek out other card games to get the kind of experience that I used to expect out of Magic. I have no intention of quitting this game. I said that at the start, and I want to make that clear again. I am still passionate about this game, as I wouldn't otherwise have even bothered making something like this. I would simply have chosen to fade silently into the background if I didn't care about the way the game had been impacting me. There's one last example I'd like to give, but I'm aware that it's a much more me-centric issue than everything else I've talked about. A lot of the content I have historically made about this game stems from its history, be that the competitive history of formats past or the insights of early days of set design. These kinds of articles that Wizards kept on their own site were the things that I heavily relied on as first-hand accounts of events. When WotC changed their website design, all of these articles fell to the wayside and most of them were no longer available. Even if you had links, they still weren't accessible. And because of the obscure and niche nature of the subject, they were not thoroughly archived on things like the Wayback Machine. Much of this history now sits beyond my grasp, which has made it very hard for me to look back on these subjects. I love talking about this game, but it has become increasingly hard to do so, and it does not bring me the same satisfaction as it once did. I don't want that to be the case. I don't want to be disillusioned with this game. I've been silently working through all my grievances for a long time, accepting that my dissenting opinion would not change the course of the game in any meaningful way, if at all. But something has finally compelled me to talk about it, though I admit I cannot identify what. Maybe it's just my innate drive to talk about this game, no matter the reason. Maybe I believe someone will really care about this. Maybe someone will take something away from all this. But honestly, I sincerely doubt that. Nevertheless, I shout into the void and hope to hear a response back.